Welcome to our in-depth case study featuring our journey at Local Bounti, a revolutionary company in the agriculture sector. Joining me as a co-interviewer is Bilal from Bill Media. And with us today is Local Bounti's former Chief Accounting Officer, Dan Martinelli, to discuss the financial transformation that we navigated together.
And hi, I'm Dan Martinelli. As Jake indicated, I'm the former Chief Accounting Officer at Local Bounti.
And hi, my name is Bilal from Bill Media. As Jake introduced me, I'll be the co-interviewer today.
And I'm Jake, former corporate controller, director of corporate accounting at Local Bounti.
And jack of all trades. Don't forget that, Jake.
Yes, jack of all trades. If you need it done, I can get it done.
Absolutely.
So Dan, could you provide some context about Local Bounti before I came on board? I know you weren't there when I came on board.
Let me give you some background. So, Local Bounti was in a kind of a new space. It was figuring out a way to grow lettuce indoors, which took, 90% less land and 90% less water than conventional farming. They did have a chief accounting officer. Sorry, they actually had a chief financial officer before Jake joined. However, I don't think this gentleman's background was in finance. So they really needed somebody to come in and do the books and get the books set up. The founders of the company really were looking to have a lot of detail with respect to cost accounting. And so they needed to bring somebody in who actually had a strong accounting background and also had done some cost accounting. And Jake was the perfect fit. I think Jake was also living in Montana at the time, which is where we were located, which was Hamilton, Montana. And, one thing led to another. Jake got hired. I think he was initially hired as the plant controller. And then when we decided that we were going to go public, then Jake became the corporate controller. And, I said jack of all trades. Jake really did everything finance-wise, whether it was accounting, accounts payable, payroll, general ledger, all the nuts and bolts that go along with closing the books.
To address these challenges, I was brought in to utilize my expertise in financial control and management.
So, Jake, could you explain a little bit in detail about these solutions that you implemented to address the challenges at Local Bounti?
Sure. So when I came on board, they had technically purchased NetSuite. They said that they implemented it, but they had not done anything with it. It was just a box, and they were manually entering everything into it. And the gentleman that I was coming in to help, he was on his way out the door, and he was doing everything manually. And I saw all of the work that needed to be done. And it was taking him a couple of hours a day just to enter in all of the plant inventory transactions. And my first gut reaction was, okay, how do we automate this? Because I cannot spend all my time doing this every day. Not just because I didn't have the time. I mean, who wants to do that? So what I ended up doing was working with I can't remember the name of the software. It was what was it called? Artemis. I think it was Artemis.
Artemis.
Yeah, Artemis. They were a new company as well, and I was working with them to use their open API to connect NetSuite and the system where we kept all of our plant data, from the seed date to the date we transferred it to the pond to the day it was harvested, what kind of lettuce it was, etc. And so that was one of the things that I helped do. But we also implemented Bounti, which is an accounts payable system that helps automate accounts payable. So, for example, when I first came on board, we had 35 employees, and we had 5 greenhouses, and within 12 months, we had 12 greenhouses, and we were at over 100 employees, and we were publicly traded. And we were spending millions of dollars every month And so with Tipalti, we implemented it, and it was able to cut out 80% of the work that accounts payable usually requires. So we had a part-time, if you will, we had a full-time staff accountant, but she spent 50% of her time doing accounts payable from the time we hired her till the time we went to 100 employees, and then we actually ended up merging with another company, buying another company. We ended up with 200 plus employees. We still only had one part-time payable person. There were several other things that we implemented. We implemented Blackline, which is a general ledger reconciliation system that can help you close the month end. Dan, do you remember any of the other systems that we?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here, and we also did Procurify, which was our purchase order system. Jake implemented the Brex credit card system so that we could track our expenses more efficiently. There was a lot of controls that we also had to put in place when we migrated to become a public company, and Jake was instrumental in those controls. He did talk about Blockline. That was one of my key initiatives when we went public, because that was our reconciliation tool. And to me, that's one of the fundamental controls. And Jake really, in Jake fashion, he took that bull by the horns, and he just, when I asked him to do it, he started to meet with Blackline. He got everything loaded onto I can't remember if we were in the cloud on that one or if we loaded that onto our network. I think we were in the cloud on that one. But he worked very closely with the Blackline team to get it all set up, and then was able to assign who needed to do which reconciliations. We actually had a review process set up. And Jake was kind of the quarterback to get all of this done, and got it done in a very short period of time, which was awesome. Like I said, we also did Brex, Procurify, Tipalti, NetSuite. I think those are the main ones that really cover everything. For payroll, we actually outsourced that, but Jake was also heavily involved with that process and making sure that we had proper controls in place where, our HR team would actually load the person into the payroll system, and then we on the back end would just basically take a look at the files, send the wire or initiate the wire, and then we would get the wire approved to fund it so that the payroll could get paid on time. Hopefully that kind of gives you some background.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, that's impressive. Jake and Dan, if you will, kind of just dive in, some obstacles that you guys kind of encountered. What were some kind of, specific obstacles for, the viewers that are watching?
Yeah. The one thing I will say is going from a very small company with not very many controls to having to implement some controls. Not everybody was really happy about what needed to be done or really to follow those controls. And so, we in finance had to walk a fine line between, what was a control that we really needed and, letting the business actually go ahead and, kind of be nimble. And I think Jake did a really good job with trying to navigate that kind of fine line and, working with folks, making sure that we understood what their issue was, and then trying to find a solution where we could actually have controls in place that we needed because we were now a public company, and at the same time, allow our people to do their job. So one of the things that, Jake worked on with myself was for travel policies to get pre-approvals, we actually went out and had some predefined pre-approval levels. So if you were going to fly coach, that was pre-approved. So you didn't need to get approval to actually, book a airline ticket. If your hotel was going to be under a certain threshold, for most cities, now, if you were in New York or San Francisco, I think we had higher thresholds, then, those travel type things were pre-approved. So it became more of exception reporting as opposed to getting everything pre-approved. That was just one of the examples that I think, Jake and we put our heads together, and Jake came up with some of these ideas, and then he helped to implement. Actually, he was the one who implemented those. Jake and I would kind of come up with the ideas on a brainstorming session.
Mhm.
Thanks, Dan. I remember that was Concur that we ended up using.
There you go. It was Concur. I couldn't remember what the name of the system was, even though everybody uses it.
Yeah, it was really, we did run into some folks that didn't really like, so when we were smaller, people kind of just did whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, because
Right.
that's just how it went. And then when we transitioned to a public company, we had to get documented approvals for things. And like Dan said, there weren't some people weren't super happy about it, but we moved from, getting approval for every single thing to just making sure that if it was already in the policy, that it's just go ahead and approve it. And it made it so that people could just do what they wanted when they wanted, as long as it fell within the policy and it didn't add any more burden to their day. They just had to, request it in Concur, and it happened.
Yeah, that's super impressive. Dan, kind of reflecting on, your guys' journey together and the immense progress you and Jake made at Local Bounty, would you recommend working with someone with Jake's skills and experience to other organizations confronted with, similar challenges?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Jake was somebody who I could really rely on to get things done. A lot of my job when I was a chief accounting officer was, to get us to go public and do all the financial reporting stuff. But underneath all of that is all of the nuts and bolts of accounting that need to take place, all the transactional processing, the cost accounting, which, Jake touched on with Artemis and things like that. And the amount of effort that went in to track the costs I was pretty impressed when I came on board at the level of detail that we were tracking with respect to cost accounting, which I thought was pretty good. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Jake. I enjoyed working with Jake. He's a great guy, great personality. He's got a good sense of humor, and there was a lot of stressful times, but I think putting our heads together and coming up with some good ideas, we were able to get things done. One of the other things that I want to talk to about Jake is when I got there, again, we went public, and what I wanted to do was some analysis on monthly results. And one way you can tell if your monthly results are good is if you can explain forecast versus actual and month over month fluctuations. And, I think it took us a couple of months to get that process down pat. But I would say by the fourth month that I asked Jake to put something in place, we actually had a pretty good game plan, and we felt pretty good about the results once we went through this process. Now, it was a bit painful because we had to assign who was going to do what accounts. Our budget process wasn't always the best, but things didn't get budgeted, I think, on an accurate basis. But long story short, we were able to get comfort with the numbers. And we basically took the close from about 22 days. I think, Jake, we probably had it down to about 11 days from start to finish, which was pretty good for in such a short period of time.
It's quite impressive.
100%.
Jake, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, or.
Yeah, I remember we were able to, get the books closed at a much more rapid clip once we, established those responsibilities, who was doing what and when it was going to be due. And my responsibility was to, not only make sure it got done and that it was done right, but that it got done on time. And, if somebody got sick or if somebody was taking a time off, I would, jump in and make sure that the work got done, or I would help redistribute the work amongst the team so that we could all have some semblance of a work-life balance and still get the work done on time. And, when Dan says 11 days, our goal was always by the 10th business day. So by the end of, if you've got, when we say business day, it's just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I've worked at organizations in the past where days were days. Like if you needed to get done by the 10th and the 10th was a Sunday, you just got it done. But at Local Bounty, we were able to have work-life balance because of all of the
Yep.
the things that we implemented so that the company could scale as it grew.
One other thing that I would like to add about Jake is, and this doesn't always happen to companies, but Jake had mentioned earlier on in the call that we purchased a company, and we purchased a company that was much bigger than us. So when we were at Local Bounty, because we only had one farm, and it was more of an R&D facility than it was a commercial facility to sell lettuce. The sales that we had at the Hamilton facility were not very big. And then we purchased a company that had about $25 million in annual sales. And, had Jake, as mentioned, another 100 employees came on board. So that created an accounting challenge, which is, okay, how do you consolidate a much larger company with our small company and then still close the books on time? And then there's a mapping that takes place of their general ledger into our general ledger and their chart of accounts into our chart of accounts. And again, went to Jake, hey, Jake, here's the problem that we got. And, Jake, again, took the bull by the horns. We worked on the mapping together to map the general ledger accounts. And then, we actually did some test files and did a pre-consolidation so that when the transaction actually closed, the accounting folks were pretty much ready to go. And we could tell our chief financial officer that, hey, we'll be able to consolidate and get you results. Because what happened was we closed this deal right at the end of a quarter. And because we were a public company, we were now going to have to show, I think we closed right at the beginning of a quarter, but we still had to do some filings that had the combined results on a pro forma basis when we did our 10Q, and we were ready to go. So again, Jake was instrumental in getting this done. Without Jake, this doesn't get done. So just wanted to add that in there.
Appreciate that, Dan. It was a lot of fun.
Not so much fun when we were doing it, but it was a lot of fun looking back.
True. Very true. Thank you for your valuable insights and kind words. Our shared journey at Local Bounty underscores the essential role of sound financial leadership and strategy in propelling a company's success. We look forward to inspiring others with more such narratives and driving further transformative changes in the business landscape. Thank you so much for your time today, Dan. I really appreciate you doing this.
Jake, it was a pleasure. Those days at Local Bounty, I will not forget.
Neither will I.